it's not something that's super expensive. I'm sorry. Hello everyone, today we are going to be doing a plant show and tell. I would call it a plant tour, but I have decided to be a little extra and carry all my plants over instead of bringing you guys around to see them. I do have some big plants, I have some small plants, but I will be carrying them all over here. Just as a size reference, I am around like 5'2", just so you can get like a rough estimate of how big these plants are. I am a fairly small person, but I do still have big plants. Mainly, I have all my plants in my room and the fish room, which is just around the door over there. But I am going to be starting with the fish room, just so in the end when I'm tired, I am not walking back and forth just to grab plants. I am gonna have to grab each one with the plant in the pot, so it's gonna be pretty heavy, and I'm assuming I'm gonna be tired by the end of this video. But being realistic, when am I not tired? Okay, so let's get started. I'm just gonna go grab some plants, bring them over, and tell you guys a little bit about them. So here are the first plants I grabbed. I do have multiples of some plants just because you can't really get, I mean technically you can if you run out of space, but you can't get enough of the same plant. I am a huge fan of pothos, so right here are some enjoy pothos. There might be some pearls and jade mixed in. So the main difference between the pearls and jade and the enjoy pothos is that enjoys have bigger splotches that are sectioned out, and pearls and jade have like little speckles in the white. So sometimes you can have like two of the same species in a pot, but I did buy these ones as enjoys. This is my bigger trailing one, and then I have a smaller one right here. Here is my maranta. It had a growth spurt like during summer, but it honestly didn't throw out too many leaves, and surprisingly it's like a fast grower for other people, but I think these plants just hate me in general. A little thirsty though. So I did agree to show all of my plants, which means all of them. Just as a disclaimer, this is like a pothos that I propagated because it got really long, and I did root it, but I didn't take care of it after that. So this is my propagated, it was a marble queen, but a lot of leaves have just shriveled up. It's not getting enough water. Next one is kind of the same case. I did give it water when I went back, but so philodendrons, you have to keep moist for them to thrive, not necessarily like wet, not dry either. It's like a nice medium of moist and humid. So these ones were my first ones, and unfortunately they had the experience of me learning with them, but I kind of just tossed the sad ones in here. I'm still trying to bring them back to life, but I mean, just use your eyes. Here is another propagated pothos. I think this is a mix of golden and marble queen. The yellow leaves are pretty normal with pothos as long as it's still growing. Like if you water it too much or water it not enough, where it's not getting like a sip of this nutrient, they turn yellow. So here's a lower light marble queen leaf. They do get whiter with like higher light, and then the goldens are just kind of like a speckle more than like full marble. Okay, so moving back to healthier plants. This is my marble queen. I've been exposing her to a little bit less light, so she's not as white and speckly, but she does have one branch of snow queen, which is just mostly white variegation. And she is pretty long. I've had this one for maybe a little over a year, maybe 2 years now. Like once they do pick up growth, they start to trail pretty long. But again, pothos is one of my favorites, and I do have a good variety of them. The really sad one is the one I took the trimmings off of, because it's about right here. It was going about double the length. So this buddy right here is a neon pothos. This one's pretty long as well. It is a little thirsty just because you can see the leaves are a little droopy. This is the pot I chose with it. It's like a pastel, it goes pretty well. On to the next one. I have this buddy right here, which is an umbrella plant, also known as like Schefflera arboricola, I think. This is one of the first plants I got actually. So I actually got it when it was like probably the size of the offshoot that is growing right here. And now I have it as a full tree. I have moved it a few times, probably just showing you guys this. It's gonna get a little dramatic and drop some more leaves, but she's one of the longer ones that I've had. I'm like running out of breath already. I'm not even halfway through. So the next plant I have is a variegated string of hearts. I actually have 2 pots, so I decided to bring them over both. I have some in this little like wood log boat, I don't know. And if you can see, there's some white leaves. Usually white leaves don't survive, but it's actually still growing in there. The reason all white leaves don't survive is because there's no chlorophyll. It can't produce energy for itself, so normally it just shrivels up or dies. And I also have this one. It's probably around 3 feet. It was a lot longer, but it was cut. And there is a piece of it that is reverted, which is nice because I've been looking for normal string of hearts. So now I don't have to. But what I do love about this one right here, midway through there are, if I can get it to focus. Don't look at me, look at the plant. Midway through I have little half moon leaves, which I've never seen on a variegated string of hearts before. So that's where the reversion starts, and this is where the half moon are. Next, I have string of turtles. So I used to have a really nice trailing plant until I was like, oh, maybe I'll give them some more sun. I put it by the windowsill and they basically got all crispy at the top. So I had to cut them from the top and propagate them just like this. I should probably be keeping them a little bit like more moist just so they can develop roots, but there's so much going on in life. Here is my Chinese money plant, also known as a Palea something. I was like so happy when I found this plant because it was like really big on Instagram. And for a good time I did love it, but it's like they require so much attention and they're very dramatic during winter. So right now I feel like I have the plant just to have it, but I'm like just acquainted with the plant. I wouldn't even say we're friends. This is my Scindapsis exotica. My fault that it looks the way it is. It used to be very full and lush, but I overwatered it during summer just because it was like super hot for a few weeks, so I kept on watering it without checking the soil, and I gave it root rot. So that's why you're seeing all the curly leaves. It's just trying to get water when it necessarily, like, it can't really do it because it doesn't have roots. So I also have a very angry calathea rattlesnake. I forget the scientific name, but I've had it for years and I'm kind of like, once it crisps up, I just let it go, but she keeps growing. I have 2 kind of rehab pots of Rhaphidophora tetrasperma or Tetrasperma rhaphidophora. I can't remember which way it goes. Also commonly known as a mini monstera, but they're not a monstera. They just kind of have the fenestrated leaves like one, so some people call it that. Some people have a huge issue with it calling that. I mean, like, here's another form of satin pothos I have. This one is called a silvery Ann. The other exotica has a lot larger leaves and is more evenly speckled, whereas this one has it like towards the end of the leaf. This guy coming through right here is a golden pothos, and it was basically the first plant I ever had. So it's, I've cut it back a few times. So it's not as long, but it is full and fluffy. And like I said, golden pothos. It's not in like the most highlight situation, so some leaves are just green, but I think down here, maybe, I don't know, you can see some speckles. It should be a lot more variegated. I have my favorites and it's not fair to them. But I love them all. Alrighty, I'm not completely done with all the plants in that room, but I have mostly gotten through most of my common plants. I have 2 philodendrons in there, and then I'm going to start with the plants in my room. But after this checkpoint, it is more of the uncommon philodendrons, or the more sought after ones. They're not necessarily rare, just because you can find them almost anywhere. Okay, this little buddy right here is called a Philodendron giganteum, and it is a very small baby. So these are my largest leaves at the moment. It's still growing, still super full and happy, but given prime conditions in a few years to grow, the leaves can grow bigger than me. Here is my next plant. This is also another philodendron. She is called a Philodendron painted lady. In higher light, you can get like more lighter variegation with the speckles. They'll be almost like a golden yellow. She's grown in like medium to low light, so you can see the variegation, but it's not as bright as it can be. Okay, this is the last plant in the room, so I won't have to be carrying them back and forth, but I will be having to carry heavier plants. I'm like definitely breaking a sweat right now. I'm just gonna get this one out of the way. I said I'd carry it up to you guys even though it's right here, but I will carry it. And I think I haven't watered it in like too long, so it shouldn't be that heavy. Just so I don't have to carry it too long, this is my giant golden pothos. Some people call it a Hawaiian pothos. Again, some people don't like that it's called a Hawaiian giant pothos just because they're like, oh, that's just a name, it's just a giant pothos. But I just like the big plant. So if you're buying it for the big plant and not because it's called a Hawaiian, go for it. Okay. Whoa, it's not gonna kill you, it's just a plant. So this is my giant pothos. The bigger leaves. What if I would put it down? So here are the bigger leaves, and it is fairly large. They're over 12 inches long. It's probably one of my favorite plants. But it's not necessarily as tall as I am. But look at these leaves. I can't get over it. So currently this is my biggest plant. For some reason I like big plants. They look more beautiful than just like smaller plants. I also like vining plants, but I also like big vining plants. If you're wondering how to grow a pothos this big, it's gonna need like something to climb on. That's like one of the main things that gets them to this size, and it's gonna need like really good humidity, high light, and some time. The best way to get a big plant is to buy a big plant if you don't have the patience for it. And we're gonna put it back, but we're gonna close the door so Blue doesn't scream. So one more time, this is my giant pothos. Looks about right, right? About where it was. Going back to usual size plants. This is the Ficus. It's not a Taneki. I mean, it's a rubber plant. Ficus elastica, there you go. So these ones are fairly common. You can find them at Lowe's and Home Depot, but such beautiful variegation, because you know if this variegation was on a monstera, it'd be marked up in the hundreds. A lot of people like expensive plants, and it's not necessarily because they're expensive, it's just the demand really just puts the price up there. Not price shaming, you know. I definitely think some plants are worth the higher mark, and I would also want some plants that are in the higher mark that I cannot afford, but remember to get the plants you like and not what everyone has. I mean, you can get plants that everyone likes. It's not up to me to tell you what to do. Properly, it's a Calathea Varieties, but I just call it a Varieties. In my opinion, this is one of the easier to calatheas to care for. Like, I had a white fusion and saw that rattlesnake before. A lot of calatheas with the smooth leaf that I find need that higher humidity, need that extra watering. But this guy right here is kind of like a pothos, not that is like super easy to care for, but the leaves will like be really sad when it needs water, even though it is a prayer plant. It will close at night and open during the day. I'm just gonna take a second to catch my breath after that pothos took me out. Okay, yes, I am back. So they don't need as much attention as other calatheas, but they are also twice as beautiful. I don't know if you can see from there, but the leaves are very velvety. So this plant did have spider mites twice, so it's not looking as vibrant as it can, but nonetheless very beautiful. So if you do ever want to try calatheas, I definitely recommend the Worcestershire or the Zebrina as well. The difference between the Zebrina and Worcestershire is the Zebrina has like a different block pattern, but it also has the velvety leaves still. Okay, the last plant on this table right here is a Scindapsis trubii moonlight. It's not a pothos, it's a Scindapsis. I don't think the other Scindapsis are considered pothos either, just like the Satin pothos. This one has a shiny leaf. I do only have one plant in this pot, so it's not as full and bushy as some others you might have seen. But nonetheless, a very beautiful shimmer with silver. Okay, so that puts us more than halfway through. The last plants I have are the ones on my table in the back of you guys, and that is where I keep my more prized plants. Not necessarily the ones that will cost you an arm and a leg. They are a little bit more pricier, I'm not gonna lie on that. But these plants are the plants that I got because I love the way they look. And starting off with the most basic rare plant is my Thai constellation. So when I had got this plant, I don't know if you can see right here, some of its leaves are very sad. My fault for not inspecting, but I didn't see anything at the time. I think they were thrip eggs instead of thrips. But this plant did go through a good amount of damage. So I neem oiled it, washed her off so many times, and now there are no more thrips. And after a few months, we got this new leaf right here. But the other leaves did grow larger from when I had it as well. So this is a Monstera Thai constellation. And you can see here, that was already cut off. I'm assuming it was a large white patch that didn't get the right light and humidity, so it kind of just shriveled up, just like this right here. So like I said, white patches on leaves, they like to die. Another monstera on the table is the Monstera borsigiana albo. So this plant right here, I got at a, also had thrips on this leaf. You can see like the tip yellowing. So I got this plant at a very discounted price. If you're familiar with albos, normally like just a 1 or 2 leaf trimming will go into the hundreds. We got a new leaf coming in. Right in the back of the newest leaf right here. Well, you can't really see that. I actually got this plant at a whopping $150. That is a lot of money for a plant, but for the plant it's not too bad. So the reason it was a lot cheaper is this was a trimming it was grown from, and it had grown 3 green leaves before it put out another leaf with variegation. And it is a minimal amount of variegation, so it's just the fact that it can be reverted. So now I'm just waiting to see if it'll throw out any more or if it's just gonna revert back to monstera. So that is a gamble I took with it. This one also has a second row of fenestrations, but the next leaf will show whether it is or not. Regardless, it still has the gene. It might have reverted completely. It might give me a leaf 9 leaves later. That is a struggle with loving variegation. Some of it is stable, some of it is not. Okay, so this is also one of my larger plants in terms of just the stick I put it on. This is a Manjula pothos. You can tell it's Manjula because the leaves are a lot rounder, and the type of variegation, some people mix it up with pearls and jade, but it is a Manjula. So I'm just gonna back up to see the scale so I can fit the whole thing. I did make it into a tree. Anyways, just so you guys see the prettier end of it, this is a Manjula pothos. I was hoping that adding it onto the tree would grow bigger leaves because, like I said, vining plants, when they have the opportunity to climb, grow larger leaves. Alrighty, bringing it back to the smaller philodendrons. This little buddy right here I got as a single leaf trimming, and it grew this one for me, and another one is on the way. This is a Pothos silver. So the difference between the Pothos and the Pothos silver are the little silver streaks that you see through the leaves. The normal ones are just full green. So here's this one. Here's my elephant planter, but we're going to talk about the plant inside. This plant is something that I looked for a very long time, and then now that I have it, I kind of don't want it anymore. I think it's just because it's been throwing out white leaves every other. So I do have half moons, and then it'll throw out white leaves on this side, and with white leaves they keep dying, so I more just have like half a plant than a full plant. This is a monstera stanleyana. It was sold to me as aurea just because it's on the yellow end, but I'm not sure if it's aurea or an albo. It does go creamier, but I've been told that aurea sometimes grows in yellow then turns to the creamy white. So here is this one. This buddy right here that I have growing on a stick is a Philodendron mottled dragon. So his leaves are shaped like dragon heads, and they are speckled through. I thought it was an established plant when I bought it, but it was a rooted top cut. So now that the newer leaves are coming in smaller, but they are growing in nicely. It took months before the growth spike even started to form a new leaf, and now it's like doing the same thing. So I'm assuming it's just the growth season that it's happy in, or it finally rooted enough to grow. Okay, so I have 2 plants left. I'm gonna show you the second one, and then I'm gonna save my favorite for last. So this little buddy right here is an alocasia silver dragon. It's a very small plant. It's a baby now. It's actually not even mine. I'm just growing it for my boyfriend, but it has grown 2 leaves with me already. Alocasias do prefer a little more humid, a little more moist. So I would say they're a little more intermediate on the care range, but they're a very rewarding plant. They have very beautiful leaves. Okay, so now with me, I have my favorite plant. It is a bit in the pricier range. It's in the low hundreds depending on the size of it, but I would say this plant is something that is definitely worth the price tag. So this guy right here is a Philodendron ring of fire. The thing with the ring of fire is that when it has new growth, this is the newest leaf right here. The new growth comes in orange and red and yellow. Then it establishes to a darker green, but it still keeps the variegation. So I really just love the color, the shape of the leaf, and how the plant grows. So this is a semi-small plant right now. This is a bit larger leaf, but they have the opportunity to grow a couple feet long that I've seen. So you've basically seen all of my plants. The plants, I have a couple in the bathroom, which is a monstera ansonii. I have an exotica in water propagation, and then I have a Dieffenbachia? Aglonema? It's called something evergreen, Chinese evergreen. I have one of those. I know I told you guys I'd show them all, but the bathroom plants are kind of like permanently installed, where it's like I have them growing against the wall and I don't want to go over there. This is gonna be my final plant. Again, the Philodendron ring of fire. If you have questions on any of them, feel free to leave them in the comments. I would say I have a good amount of plants, but compared to a lot of people in the plant group or the friends I have in the Bay Area, my collection's small. But that really does wrap up our show and tell. So if you have stayed until the end and saw me struggle and drip sweat throughout the whole process of carrying all my plants to show and tell you guys about them, I really appreciate it. I know sometimes I get annoyed at the sound of my own voice, especially when I'm editing, so I don't know how you guys deal with it. But anyways, that's gonna wrap up everything with my plants. If you guys did enjoy the content, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And until then, see you next time, everyone. I wouldn't say plants are an addiction, but they are therapy.